Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday. And on the menu for this Saturday, we have Irem's 1994 Super NES classic, R-Type 3, the Third Lightning. So what kind of taste will this one go and have? Let's get cooking and find out. Or, as the game would go and say, let's blast off and strike the evil Bido Empire. So unlike previous R-Type titles, this one actually gives you the choice of what kind of force you want to go and use. There's the original force, and this one renamed the Round Force. There's also the Shadow Force, which goes and introduces two shadow bits at higher levels that you can go and use, as well as different lasers. And then also the Cyclone Force, which goes and also has different lasers, and then can also be used to go and deal heavy damage to the enemies, as when the force is detached from your ship, it's basically this spinning cyclone of like death, high damage, however you want to go and look at it. I really go and like that one, but for today's playthrough, I'll be using the Shadow Force. Selected Type 2. Information. Mission Sequence Level 2, warp out to enemy's territory. So real quick, I just wanted to go and say I love that warp out sequence where you go and start in the warp core and then zoom out to the ship as it goes and comes out of, well, warp. Definitely one of the best intro scenes for shoot 'em up on the Super NES, in my opinion. So here we go and have a power-up. Once we go and collect this yellow power-up, we'll go and bring our force onto the screen. And there's already a second one. So we went and collected a yellow, and now we go and collect a red. And we've already got the level 2 force bit. So here you can go and see there's already an extra option like force on the screen that I can go and control with the movement of my ship. We have a couple big mech enemies going and firing shots at us. We'll let this guy go past us. So in addition to our auto shot and the shots that we go and get with our force attached, as it's not quite the same when the force is detached, we also go and have the really powerful Mega Wave Cannon, which is just evolution of the Wave Cannon from previous R-Types. Just as a heads up as far as ship numbers are concerned. So in the original R-Type, and I believe R-Type 2 as well, you're going and piloting the R9 fighter. And in R-Type 3, since this goes and takes place years later, we're going and piloting the significantly more advanced R90. What's more advanced about it? Well, first off, the bits, or not the bits, the force units that it goes and has the ability to control, the Shadow Force and the Cyclone Force, go and make up part of the uniqueness of the ship itself. But there's also, in addition to the Wave Cannon being upgraded to the Mega Wave Cannon, there's also the Hyper Wave Cannon, which I'll go and be demonstrating against the boss of the stage when we go and get there. One thing that this game does go and do is it makes very heavy use of Mode 7 for scaling and rotation of both the background and enemies themselves. Sometimes going and causing a fair bit of slowdown, but given that this was a Super NES title, that's not entirely unexpected. Here's a perfect example of that Mode 7 scrolling I was mentioning. So with our Wave Cannon, it's possible to charge it up once for a smaller shot, but if we go and charge it up all the way to the Mega level, we go and fire a really powerful beam that can go and pass through all enemies and background objects to go and deal heavy damage, sometimes to things that we can't always go and hit through normal means as well. So in addition to the various power-ups for the Force, there are also a couple other power-ups that we can go and pick up. The S is a speed power-up. Though not always desirable, there are certain situations where it is nice to go and have more speed in R-Type. And there's also the rare M power-up, which goes and gives us a missile that we'll go and fire in addition to all of our normal shots. And, you know, every little bit of extra firepower definitely helps. So one useful benefit that this particular force goes and has when it's not attached to our ship, depending on where we're going and moving around, the particular little force bits, or rather the shadow bits that go and surround the force, go and provide directional firepower as well. Making it really easy to go and target enemies that could be otherwise difficult for us to go and hit. I really go and do like this back laser that we go and have right now. But for our upcoming fight, let's go ahead and stick to this straight laser. We'll take a pass on the yellow laser there, and the third power-up that I wouldn't mention that wasn't just a weapon force power-up is the bit. So those little guys will go and sit on the top, and if you get the second one, the bottom of your ship. And they have the ability to go and block shots, as well as go and deal contact damage to enemies. So here we are at the boss of the first stage. Once again, some neat use of mode 7. So we're going to go ahead and use the hyper beam in this case. So you go and switch to that with the button, usually the R button on your Super NES controller, to go and switch modes to hyper. And then you go and charge it up. Once fully charged up, you can release it for a blast, and then you go and have a rapid fire wave cannon beam, which is the only time in the R-Type series that you actually have that sort of rapid fire wave cannon capability. It is truly powerful, but once you're done with the wave cannon, it goes and overheats, and you have a short cooldown time before you can go and use the wave cannon again, whether in the normal like mega wave cannon mode or in the hyper mode. So here we go and find ourselves in stage 2, though it doesn't go and have as much mode 7 as the first stage. There's some interesting mechanics in this one. You've got acid that's going and dripping from the ceiling, and that acid goes and erodes the stage around it, making for a dynamic stage. And it's not necessarily static, as it is possible for us to go and actually block the acid going and using our bits, as well as the force in some of our shots as well. And in some situations we actually need the acid to go and erode the stage for us to be able to go and pass through. I was going to charge up my wave cannon, but I guess my shot was actually powerful enough to take that out without having to go that route. So one thing I haven't mentioned is it is possible to go and position your force... Oops. It is possible to go and position your force on the back of your ship, going and providing both defense, as the force does go and block normal enemy shots coming towards you, and extra firepower rear facing. So for a section like this that we're about to go and move through, that's really helpful, because we actually have the ability to go and shoot enemies that are behind us that we would be otherwise unable to go and attack. Here's another section where we have to go and let the acid eat through the stage for us to be able to actually go and move forward. charging up the Mega Wave Cannon so we can go and fire through that wall. And just carefully avoid both the enemies and the acid. Move the force back to the front. And we find ourselves at the boss of Stage 2. Once again, we'll go and charge up our Hyper Wave Cannon. Unfortunately, we can only target this enemy when the eye is open. And due to the nature of the stage itself, we can't actually hit him with our main shot, so we'll just have to go and wait for the cooldown to expire. And we have two options at that point. We can just continue hitting him with the normal Mega Wave Cannon, or we can charge up the Hyper again. So I'm just going to go ahead and use our normal Mega Wave Cannon. And hopefully it'll only take a couple more shots to go and defeat him. Beautiful. Another thing I really do like about this title is the transition between stages are really smooth. When you go and defeat the boss, it goes and takes you immediately into the second stage without any kind of interruption. Alright, well, that'll just about wrap up my look at R-Type 3 for the Super Nintendo. Though I definitely go and feel that this one is one of the better entrants in the R-Type franchise. It is, as typical of R-Types, rather difficult initially, until you go and learn the patterns that exist in the stage and the patterns of the enemies themselves. R-Type 3 does go and introduce some helpful mechanics to be able to go and get through that and the different forces that you can go and use. The Cyclone Force in particular is really a great addition to the series, as it goes and allows you to go and employ a different kind of play style that can go and be really quite high damage, though it's also high risk as well. And as you can go and see here, sometimes the game itself can just go and be difficult. It's also a really great title to go and see on the Super NES because of all the different uses of Mode 7 and other pixel and sprite manipulation that you don't really go and see in a lot of other titles. All in all, if you're a fan of the classic shoot 'em up and you haven't actually gotten the chance to go and play this one, I would highly recommend going and seeking it out. It's definitely worth your time. And though the individual stage elements can go and be a little bit difficult, one thing that must be said is the game itself is actually really lenient with its continue system. You have infinite continues, and your continues go and start you back at the last checkpoint you happen to have been at, rather than going and setting you back at the beginning of the stage. So, there we have it. R-Type 3, the Third Lightning. As always, if there's other shoot 'em ups that you think I should go and have a look at on Shoot 'em Up Saturday, then by all means, I would love to go and hear from you about those. Please go and leave them in the comments below. I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me today for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and I hope to go and see you again next week.